Grab you a cup of coffee or peppermint tea or whatever you need to get through this day. And today we are going to be talking about how I chose specific movies and movie genres to teach for 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade literature. Hey everyone, so if you have not seen our first video that we did on this, the Movies as Literature curriculum, I will link it up here, and I go into a lot of detail about how we started with the Movies as Literature curriculum to teach. Honestly, at first we were using it to teach a dyslexic child who had been placed in our home from not really necessarily the foster care system, but like she came in our home as a foster child, and she was extremely dyslexic and a little more not at the same level as like the rest of my kids, and she didn't learn the same as our kids. So I started working with her guidance counselor. When we adopted her, we were given two guidance counselors, one for legal and one for like guidance counselors who specifically help foster parents and things in our situation. And I was like, you know, she can read, she doesn't like reading. My kids love reading, she doesn't love reading. She doesn't want to do literature, she doesn't want to do any of this. And so my guidance counselor highly recommended this book. And I still strongly suggest, if you have not gone through this book first, purchase this book first. I will leave a link in the description of this video of going and buying this book, and go ahead and check out that other video first, because this is a great springboard to start off with. So what did we do once we finished this? Well, after going through it, what I require is my kids to do it for 9th grade, which means, yes, technically we're doing it for 8th grade before we start the book. So maybe you want to swap it and do this for 8th and then do what I do for my 8th grader for 9th grade. But I do this for 9th grade for my kids, because 9th grade is that year where like your brain's like, oh no, I'm starting high school, everything's so different now, blah, 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 I forget everything. And that's why I like this book, because like it goes back to basics of what composition in literature is. And that's basically what this is. Instead of having an English class where you're reviewing nouns, adjectives, adverbs, and all that most homeschool kids have learned their entire life, this goes into composition in literature. And there is a separate format when you're plugging in, like if you're like us in Tennessee, you have to submit what classes you're doing to your umbrella school or to the public school system if that's what you choose to umbrella through. You have to plug all that in. And instead of putting English 9, we put English 9 composition and literature, which means instead of reviewing nouns, adjectives, adverbs, and all that, we're going straight into just talking about covering literature, learning how to take what we've learned in literature and do a report on it. And this book is great on taking you through the baby steps of that. So that's what my now 11th grader needed, and that's what she really needed this. So we spent a whole summer on this, getting her caught up, and she absolutely loved it. But once she finished 9th grade, it was like, okay, what do we do? So I talked to the umbrellas, the same guidance counselor who recommended that, and she said, well, now you know the basics. You understand the concept of how movies as literature works. You understand how to choose specific movies based on different topics and literature needs that your child has. So why don't you go through, and here is a list of suggested videos that you can do. And I'll go ahead and hit some highlights of some of the ones that are going to be in upcoming videos. And again, like what I'm wearing now, you're going to see in like 2 or 3 videos, because it's easier for me to film one day and do 3 videos in one day than to try to like just do multiple videos on different days. And today is the day where I have time to do 3 videos, so that's when I'm doing it. But some topics that she suggested: do biographies. Biographies are so easy. Think of all the movies that they have made based on the true story of other people. They do American literature. Now this is different from the children's literature one. American literature's movies, British literature's movies, children's literature's movies. Some people do horror films. We don't, because of where we are with our adopted child and past trauma. And one of my kids doesn't do horror, and that's okay, because I'm not a big fan of horror movies either. So I don't normally do horror movies. You can do horror. Pick a book genre. Sci-fi. You can do sci-fi movies. Like you could do a whole year of sci-fi movies if that's what your kids want to do. Which we have included some like sci-fi and things. That's why I kind of like looking more at like the British and the American and the children's, because like you can mix all the genres in that you want to cover with that. Like for 9th grade, I've got one that's doing Western, and then she's going to do a sci-fi, and then she's going to do a fantasy, and then I think she's doing one biography. So it kind of like mixes all of it in. One of the main reasons why I love this is that it gives us the freedom to choose what movies we want to read and what books we want to read, and then what movies we want to do with those books. There's also a second video on how to use this as advanced placement. I have 2 that are dyslexic that do it as regular. And I'm not saying a dyslexic child cannot be an advanced placement student, but I don't require my dyslexic kids to do as much writing and reading as my non-dyslexic kids who are advanced placement, because I just feel like that's not really fair. Dyslexic kids, I think, should have a little more leeway of like not really like cutting them complete slack to where like they're not responsible for their work. And I mean, I think you guys understand my heart on that, but like I just feel like if my dyslexic child struggles with sitting down and reading a book, I shouldn't make them sit down and read a book. Whereas the advanced placement students, if you read the book with it, and I go through all the how to do it as advanced placement for my other 2 kids, and then I do it different for my dyslexic kids. And that's one of the beauties of this is I have 2 11th graders, and both of them went through British Movies as Literature last year. So let's focus back in on that, and I'm trying to focus more on that. But literature is one of my 2 favorite subjects. One of the 2 subjects that I excelled in school, and I was in advanced placement classes for a while until I switched schools, and then the credits got lost in one of the 10,000 billion reasons why I hate public school. Yes, I said 1,000 billion. But one of the 10 billion reasons why I'm not a big fan of putting my kids through public school, especially in an area where I grew up, is because like stuff that happened to us. But for a while I was in advanced placement literature, and so like I love literature. I love teaching literature. It's something that I naturally understand and know how to teach it to my kids. And it's not supposed to storm today, but there's a window there and there's a window there. So like the lighting may be weird today. It's been like storming off and on for like a month. So like the lighting may be weird. I use white light in this room that I film in. So literature is one of my focus areas. My other focus area is history, and history can tie into literature so easily. So let's talk about that as well. So one of the reasons that, or how I choose which topic that my kids use for literature. Like I said, you may have a kid who absolutely loves sci-fi but hates reading, and you may want to do movies as literature and focus on books based on sci-fi. Guess what? Star Wars is based on a book. Have fun with that. You could literally make an entire year of movies as literature based on Star Wars. I'm not even kidding. You actually can. It works. I could talk with y'all like in messages on Facebook or Instagram on this homeschooling adventure about that if you want, but like you could literally take a kid, if they don't love reading, do movies as literature, and if they love Star Wars, do Star Wars. There's so many books that can line up with that. And like the Star Wars universe, like my kids could spend an entire summer watching Star Wars and still not watch everything. That's what you need to do. That's cool. The way that we do movies as literature is 8th grade, we do children's movies as literature. And I'll get more into why we choose children's movies as literature for 8th grade later. Then we do the movies as literature curriculum, because again, 9th grade brain, no, I don't want my kids to have to deal with that. So doing it from the book hones in more of the, okay, this is basics, I've got this, I know how to do this. This is just to help me make sure that I remember and, you know, convince myself, because what we think our actions do, and it helps us to focus in the thoughts back on of, okay, I know how to do this, so let's focus on this. So that's why I do movies as literature for 9th grade. 10th grade, I do British movies as literature. Why do I do that? In Tennessee, most of my thought process is, at the moment, we are based in Tennessee. When we travel, I still use the standards for Tennessee. In Tennessee, 7th grade, you're required to do Tennessee history. 10th grade, usually you do world geography or world history, and you're required to take one of those 2 classes to graduate. So my thought process was, okay, if we have to cover world geography or world history, why not do the British movies as literature when we're focused on other countries, other cultures? So that's why we chose British movies as literature for 10th grade. And there are so many cool movies I'll cover here in a minute. I thought about doing a members only post about that, but like also I feel like I would be cutting you all out on a lot of information in this video, and I know a lot of you don't really have the extra funds even to do the 99 cents a month. So I want to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and include them in this video, but I may do a members only post of like optional movies you can also choose, but I don't know, we'll focus on that later. But I'm going to cover what my kids did last year with some other options of what my now 9th grader is possibly going to do for movies as literature next year for British movies as literature. So that's why we chose British movies as literature for 10th grade, is because she's going to be my rising 9th grader is actually going, or my one who's going to be in 9th grade next year is on a 3-year graduation course, so she technically will be in 10th grade English next year. It's complicated. So like Both of them are going to be doing world history next year. So that's why they're going to do British movies and literature as well. 11th grade, usually in the United States, usually in Tennessee, most 11th graders take U.S. history. So the cool thing for this year is I have an 8th grader and 2 11th graders. So a lot of their movies are coinciding, but I'm doing them at their own level. And whatever my 8th grader does now, she's not doing for a movie in the 11th grade, because I don't repeat movies. I try really hard to not like, if my 9th grader watches a movie that my 10th graders have already watched and they did it for theirs, like if she watched it with them, that doesn't count. Like if they've watched the movie and did a report with it, we don't repeat it. So like stuff that she's watching in 8th grade with the 11th graders, she won't repeat, she'll do something different. But a lot of the time right now though, because of that format, I can do movies for both of them at the same time and not have to try to do 3 movies at one time. That's another cool way you can do it, is you can combine your grades. Like 8th and 11th, they can do the same thing. And then when your 8th grader becomes 11th grader, find some new ones that you like. And there's so much American literature that you can choose. So that's why I did 11th grade, because they're doing U.S. history this year, so American literature. 12th grade, because I wait until 12th grade to do I wait until 12th grade to do this one, it's biographies. Because a lot of the biography movies have more language content in them. And I still, it may just be my Christian perspective, but I don't understand, like, we don't want people to have certain language when they're in the workforce, but then we're gonna like pump movies into young adults and teenagers that are full of language, and you don't want them to talk like that whenever they're, you know, at work all day, but then you're gonna tell them this is okay to talk like that. I don't know. So I'm not a big fan of like movies that have excessive language in it. A lot of the biography ones have language in it. So what we've done is most of the biographies we put in 12th grade, because they're fixing to become adults anyways. They're going to have to decide what movies they are going to watch and what movies they are not going to watch based on their own personal conviction. And I want them to be at the age where they're mature enough to say, these are the ones I am going to watch, these are the ones I'm not going to watch. Honestly, when I started this video, it was going to be my British movies as literature, but I think I'm just going to, at this point, just shift gears and say this is a video based on how to choose what movies to watch for your kids. So 8th grade movies as literature, why I do children's movies as literature for 8th grade is, 8th grade is really that last year of middle school. Middle school is mostly just for fun, in my opinion, because most of what you cover in middle school gets covered in high school anyways. So for 8th grade, I kind of wanted it to still stay fun, but also for 8th grade, I wanted to tie in her American history course in with her literature, because there's so many American Girl movies, it just made it easier. Number 2, the other reason why I choose children's movies as literature for 8th grade is it's all familiar stuff. It's movies that maybe they have seen as a kid growing up, but now they're starting to understand. There's books that go with it, there's literature that goes with it, there's storyline, there's plot, there's drama, there's things in it that you learn through literature and learn how that literature is written, and then how to take what you've seen, take what you've read, and adjust it into a report and regurgitate what you've learned into a report format to show what you've learned in a neatly written composition. Because, I mean, that's basically life. You're supposed to take what you've watched or read and then absorb it and then show what you've learned from it. Like, I still watch YouTube videos, like every time my Adobe Photoshop and Premiere Pro decides to update, I usually end up having to go up on the YouTube and figure out what in the world changed and why I all of a sudden can't do this one feature I want to do, or like whenever I'm trying to add like little fun editing techniques and stuff. So, I mean, I do that. Our family has a Minecraft server just for our family, and sometimes we'll want to build like an iron farm to make it easier for the kids to have easy access to iron so they can just get back to the fun building process. And also this year we're going to tie in a lot of Minecraft into geometry and chemistry. Pretty cool. Maybe talk about that in another video. And that's just kind of the concept of life. It's just like take, use, regurgitate. I mean, so I want them to learn through children's literatures as movies of like how to do that. And I think using children's literature and using movies that they've seen before, and then, you know, also tie those in with a book, kind of helps that learning process. So that's why I do the children's one. That's why, like, again, movies as literature, I do that one because it takes that shock of 9th grade and it's like, okay, chill out, we know how to do this. Let's do familiar, let's do some quick reminding, and then we're gonna do this and get through this year. And then, you know, just remind them that yes, you can do this, and just get past that that writer's block in the brain and all the just the negative attacks to your brain of like, hey, I can't do this. Yeah, you can. You've done this before. Let's go through this together. And that's kind of what I go. So again, British movies, I do it because it takes what they're learning in world history and world geography, and it ties into literature. And I try to do like different things through that. And I'll do another video again. Like I actually sat down planning to do this one as British movies as literature, but then like it made it easier just to talk about why in a separate video for all the classes. So 8th grade, children's movies as literature. 9th grade, we do movies as literature. 10th grade, we do British. 11th grade, we're doing the American one, again, because it ties in with US history. And then 12th grade, because they're more advanced and a little bit more mature, hopefully, then we do the biographies. But that's it for today's video, you guys. Thank you to all our members for supporting this content, and thank you to all of you for liking, watching, and subscribing, and we will see you next time.